I have been sitting here for the past few minutes trying to think of the perfect Negan quote to start this video, because again, this man Madoka is really basically just anime Negan. I said last week, like, maybe we'll see something. Nah, he's anime Negan, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm all here for it. But before we get into the actual discussion about the episode itself, Gleipnir episode 10, Beautiful Flower, I do, as always, want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. So a big thank you to Bubba Lubber, Darkfire Player 4, Infamous 519, Blue Rose Enigma, and Sirius 9752. So thank you guys for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, and if you too would like to have your name in the next Gleipnir video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout out the first 5 of you in next week's video. Also, don't forget, if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button so that we can reach our subscriber goal of 25k before the end of the year. But now let's get into the video. Okay, so Gleipnir episode 10, Beautiful Flower. I was a little bit curious what that episode title was supposed to mean, and by the time we got to the end of the video, oh my, now I know. But before we talk about what the flowers mean, we gotta talk about the fact that this is essentially a game of chess between the best villain and the best girl. You got the villain in the form of Madoka, or I shouldn't even say, I mean, he is a villain, but in this case, he is the antagonist, because let's be real, Claire also not exactly a good person either, but she is one of the protagonists, our best girl, if you will. And Madoka, like I said, man, Madoka is basically anime Negan, and I'm totally here for it. I absolutely love this dude. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a bad guy, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's a good person, but in the same way you love to see Negan on screen, I love to see Madoka on screen. This man is insane. And he literally, I kid you not, he literally gives the Negan pitch. I don't know if you remember, and I'm about to spoil something from Negan's introduction to Walking Dead, but if you don't remember, Negan lines the original protagonist, all those protagonists up in a line, and he does the eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and he says, well, for you guys trying to kill my boys, one of you's got to die. So he does eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and he axes off one of the people. And that is literally the pitch that Madoka gives here. Like, I remember how last week I said, like, man, it feels like it's an homage, but maybe they're not supposed to be Negan and the Saviors. Maybe they're meant to be something else. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just reading too far into it. But at this point, I am now convinced the mangaka is a big Walking Dead fan. I don't know if he's a fan or they are a fan of the show or the comic book. I don't know, but you cannot convince me otherwise that these are not a direct, like looking directly through the screen and into your soul reference to the Saviors from Walking Dead. Like, that is 100% who these guys are. And I was so shocked, like, when he made, like, the announcement that, like, that's what they're gonna do. And the whole time I'm thinking, I remember sitting there going, like, okay, so he gave you the Negan pitch. And in that situation, like, at first, I assumed there's no way out. Because there's no way out of that. Like, if it was the straight up Walking Dead situation, you have no escape. Like, either everybody dies or one of you dies. And here, it felt like that. It felt like no matter what happens, somebody's gonna die. And to quote Negan, nothing like a little bit of holy shit, somebody's gonna die to light a fire under everybody's ass, because they all start to really scheme on how they can escape this. I will say, the biggest, like, missed move for me is Madoka, like, actually giving them space, like, allowing them to talk amongst themselves. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, that was where Madoka lost me, is when he stepped back and allowed them to talk away from the baddies. I'm like, no. See, that's where you screwed up, because if they had no other option, if they were surrounded, there wouldn't have been an escape plan. Like, they would have had to have, like, picked somebody, you know what I mean? And I can see, like, I can see a couple of the characters maybe pulling, like, a situation where they try to fight and then get shot down. But the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, like, as they're having this discussion, I'm just, you know who I'm thinking about? I'm thinking, like, okay, this man has lived long enough. He's gotta go. Pick Ikeuchi. He's gotta go. Or Yoshioka. Because realistically, like, of the group, some of these people are useful and some of them aren't. And I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you And I know some of y'all are like diehard ride or die Yoshioka fans because y'all be simping, but like I'm just gonna keep it 100 with you. Yoshioka is the most useless person in that group. Like 100%. If she fuses with Shuichi, then she's useful. But she doesn't, she's not gonna have that opportunity because Claire's not gonna let that shit happen. And B, Claire at least is still useful outside of being fused with Shuichi. Like Yoshioka, what's she do? She talks to animals? Whoop-de-doo. She's Dr. Doolittle? Yippity-doo-dah. Like, that does nothing for anybody here. At the very least, Ikeuchi got that special vision, you know what I mean? He can record stuff. He is somewhat useful, but his negatives, his cons outweigh the pros. Because as much as I don't like Yoshioka, she's sweet enough where I don't necessarily want to see her go out like that. I do wish she'd leave the show. I don't necessarily need to see her die, but I do think she's woefully under-equipped for this type of situation she finds herself in, this deadly scavenger hunt. And I think she just gotta go. Like Yoshioka gotta go. But, again, I was thinking Ikeuchi, because I was like, okay, listen, like, Ikeuchi, he even suggests himself, but we'll get into that a little bit more once we start talking about Claire. We're still in the Madoka phase of this video. But for real, I thought Ikeuchi could have been the one to go, honestly. And we'll get into it in just a sec, but I really want to like focus back up with Madoka because this man truly wants to help these idiots. Like, he actually genuinely wants to help the idiots because he feels like life is already complicated enough, and because it's so damn complicated, it makes it hard for the idiots to win. So he wants to create a situation where the idiots that he is accepted into his flock are able to get their wildest dreams. Like, he actually seems like he means it too. Like, he says, like, join me and give me your strength, and I will get the coins, I'll take the power, and I will give you all of your wildest dreams. Everything you could have hoped for, I can provide. Like that's what Madoka is promising. And genuinely, I kind of feel like he meant it. Honestly, at first I was like, maybe he doesn't mean it, but especially by the end of the episode, I really think he meant it. Like, he really did mean what he said. Like, he is trying to make a world where the idiots feel accepted. And we get to understand that aspect of him by the time we see like what his backstory was, how he used to work at this recycling plants and he felt like totally worthless because like he couldn't do his job properly. It seemed like he had a hard time fitting in. Like, we see him sort of sitting away from his coworkers at one point, and he says he always kept his head down. Like, he felt like he couldn't keep his head up. Like, he didn't feel like good enough to hold his head up high. Like, he felt worthless. But it's because he kept his head down that he couldn't help but notice the coin in the grass, and that's where everything changed. And Madoka went from being this dude who worked at a recycling plant, who was down on his luck, to being the leader of a group of shitheads, as he calls them. And he wants to build something for these people. Like, he truly does care. It does kind of, he really, really does remind me of Negan, where Negan is very much like self-absorbed, and he's a bad person, but he's also like really charismatic, and you could tell to some degree he does care about the people around him. He's willing to cut those people loose if they get in the way of what he's trying to do and what he's trying to build, but he does want to build something. And Madoka's very much the same. In fact, I'd go so far as to say Madoka's even more compassionate towards his saviors, towards his group. And we see that specifically by the time we get to the fire, which again we'll talk about when we get to Claire, but you see that specifically with him being more concerned about his followers than he's even concerned about himself. By the time the fire engulfs the mountainside, this dude is more concerned about getting his own people out than he is about his own safety. He straight up says, like, I won't leave you guys. I told you I'd never leave you. And he's in his great ape form, and he picks up two people who had fallen over because of the fire and the smoke and the gas and like the poisonous gas in the air and all this stuff, like purposely, like they're like Claire's group trying to kill these people. And Madoka, instead of running for the hills or telling everybody to scatter, he's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna hand you the rest of our team. I'm gonna go figure out what the hell's going on. You guys get to safety. I'll cover your back. Go. Like, that's the plan. And Madoka doesn't leave them. And I was so shocked by that because it really shows this dude actually genuinely cares. Madoka is one of the more interesting antagonists of the spring season. And I feel comfortable in saying that, even though we've only known him for like 3 episodes. But he's very interesting because he is a bad person, and you know he's a bad person based on the actions that we've seen him enact in the last handful of episodes, right? Like, we know he's a bad guy, and the things that he says is nefarious and cruel, and he's like, you could tell he's just a shitty person. But there's that interesting layer to him where he does genuinely care about the people under his charge. So it's very interesting to me. Like, I just find this character really, really fascinating. Again, he is very much a nod to Negan, and I'm sure some folks would be annoyed by that. But come on, it's awesome. Don't even pretend like it's not. Now, with that said, we gotta move on. We gotta get to Claire. Okay, so we gotta talk a little bit about. We talked about best villain. We gotta talk about best girl. And best girl Claire is saved from selection because of her tenacity. She is genuinely like exempted from this whole like, okay, pick one of you guys to die. Like when my boy Madoka makes the announcement, like, okay, you hurt one of my guys and I can't let that slide, and you killed one of them too, so one of you has to die. So pick. When that happens, he is noticed that Claire is standing up to him, and not so much like aggressively, but just saying like, well, what if the 2 people who you knocked out, what if they die from their injuries? Like, does that mean that they count as the death for us, or do we specifically have to pick somebody? And he's so surprised by this, like that Claire would show zero fear in the face of total destruction, that he's like, you know what? I like you. And you know what? You really feel like you're already one of us. Like, so I'm gonna let you be exempt. So you can pick anybody else but her. Like, you are exempt from the rule. And that is like the hint at the beginning of the episode that Claire is about to do some nefarious shit. Claire even kind of suggests that maybe the best option is to pick somebody. And like, maybe that is what's best. And when Ikeuchi steps up and says like, yeah, that is the only way out. Like, if we fight, we'll all die. And Claire goes, wow, Ikeuchi, that's very brave. Even though you know you'll probably be the one who gets picked, you still agree with me. Wow, that's very brave. And she says it to get under his skin, like, you idiot, shut up. If I wanted your help, I'd ask. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can just tell she's like, please. Like, don't get so confident in yourself. Don't start spouting out nonsense if you can't back it up. And like, Ikeuchi floored by that. Like, he's like, whoa. But I love that Claire got under his skin, because that's gonna lead into what happens to Ikeuchi later, and I'm so happy, but we'll get into that in a second. But I loved that she has that same sort of like one versus the many thought process, or so you think. It leads you to assume that, right? That somebody's gotta go, and that Claire's willing to make a sacrifice to keep her friends safe. By the way, keep in mind, one of those friends is Yoshioka, so my girl Claire really is putting the many above herself right now. But it's interesting to me, because it's really, to me, it's really fascinating that Ikeuchi was so quick to say like, yeah, one of us should be sacrificed, but he doesn't really keep in mind the fact that Yoshioka could be one of the people getting sacrificed. He was clearly okay with it being anybody else other than him and Yoshioka, and that's what makes Ikeuchi kind of shitty to me, because I would have been like, okay, we draw straws. Like, I wouldn't want to pick who it is. I'd be devastated no matter who it was. But like, well, unless it's Ikeuchi and Yoshioka. But you know what I mean? Like, I would have been bummed to see whoever it was, but I feel like picking straws or something would have been the best bet, because like, again, from my point of view, there was no way out of that situation. But Claire finds a way. And what way is that? Well, my girl decides to go ahead and comfort Isao, and I put comfort in huge air quotes, because Isao is like kind of like on his own. He says like, I can't do this. Like, I can't pick. That's because he's my good boy. You know, he's a precious bean. But unlike Yoshioka, he is willing to go to dark places. Like, he's willing to help Claire with some nefarious shit. And I don't know. Like, between him and Yoshioka, I feel like they're the two most under-equipped for the situation ahead of them. But at the very least, Isao steps up. Because, first of all, I gotta say, the camera very much loves Claire. Like, at every point that she's talking to somebody, they either have to point the camera up and specifically at Claire's ass, or down, like, so that you still see Claire's ass. Like, it's very much like, they're like, they're very much like objectifying Claire. But like, I give a shit. like everybody knows Claire's hot, so I'm not against that. In fact, I'm like, cool, right on. I will happily take that camera angle all day, any day. But I just wanted to point it out because I'm sure some people would be like, oh, the objectification. Now that we got my man service and my fan service, you objectify all you want. I don't give a shit. Well, you know what I mean. Like don't be creepy about it. But like if it's just scenes like that, then like whatever, I don't care. I'm sure some people find that obnoxious. I just think it's just anime nonsense, so I'm kind of all here for it. But Claire proposes an interesting idea to my boy, and that idea being that they're gonna grow some, and I wrote this down, I don't know how to pronounce it, so forgive me. They're gonna grow some Olender, whatever, these flowers that grow in sort of local parks and stuff. So they're like common flowers, but they're very poisonous. And especially when combined with smoke, like they can actually make people feel genuinely sick, like they're poisonous flowers. So Claire had been holding on to this shit. I don't know where she was holding on to these, but she was holding on to these flowers for a while, just in case things went south. And that's the perfect time to use it. She's actually like utilizing her team properly. And this does screw Isao up, because he knows what he just did. Like he knows he definitely just killed some people. But he's willing to do that if it means getting everybody out. And yes, they're planning to literally smoke them out. Like they're planning to use the smoke from the flowers to lift smoke into the air, set the forest on fire, while also putting the poisonous like aroma from the smoke into the air so that it catches the bad guys. And that's pretty messed up. I'm not gonna lie. But a fun bonus. Ikeuchi's dead! Yay! I cheered when that happened. I hated this character. Oh my god. So satisfying. I was so happy to see him go, and we actually got to see the friggin' the necklace like utilized. Like I that was cool. Like I was glad to see the necklace actually get utilized. I was like, damn, that's brutal. Did it cut his head off? It looked like it cut its head off. It literally looked like it was tight enough to cut his head off. So it may have, but either way, Ikeuchi's dead, yay! And nobody was sad. I don't know a single person who is like a Ikeuchi fan. I think everybody's excited about the fact that this dude is finally dead. But yeah, that dude's as dead as disco, and I am very happy about that. But more interesting than the Ikeuchi death, although that was great, is what we see at the end of the episode. Well, not so much the Elena thing. The Elena thing's cool, but I have nothing to say because it's just sort of a teaser. I don't know where we're going with that. So I'll acknowledge that the Elena thing happened. But the most interesting thing to me is the end of the episode before the credits, where we see this literal divide between Claire and the rest of the group. Well, Claire and Shuichi and the rest of the group. Because we see this like crack in the rock where Claire and Shuichi are on one side and the leader and the rest of the group are on the other side. And it's Claire realizing that in order to save the people she loves, she has to become scarier than the powers that are being used here. Because it's not the powers that are scary, it's the people using them. It's what really makes them monsters. And the real truth is that even though Claire has no abilities, she is the scariest one there. She's the real monster there. Because she's willing to do just about anything to protect the people she cares about. Namely Shuichi, but also the rest of the group too. And she's starting to get what it was that Elena did. Like, she's actually starting to understand Elena through the actions of characters like Shuichi and the rest of the group. Like, she's actually starting to understand her sister. That was some heavy shit. And I was so impressed with how they handled that. Like, I loved, like, the symbolism of the crack in the ground. Like, there's now this literal divide between the two because they're, like, scared of her now. Because she is the scariest one there. But I love that it's because she's trying to protect them. I find that really interesting. I don't know what's going to happen the next 3 episodes. I believe we have 3 episodes left to go. I do expect more of the group to die. I'm expecting either the store clerk or maybe Yoshioka to go. We'll see what happens. I'm not super sure. But I have a feeling like, I have a feeling Madoka's not dead. And I have a feeling like we haven't seen the end of the group yet. And something's going on with Elena, so I don't know what's going to happen. But I have a feeling the next few episodes are going to be kind of hype. But with that said, everybody, I'm going to wrap up my thoughts here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for going a little bit overboard. I definitely went overtime on this one, but I had some things to say. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that we can reach our subscriber goal. And of course, don't forget to boop the up snoot and share if you cared. And leave a comment down below, so please the almighty YouTube algorithm. And of course, I would be remiss not to end a video without giving a big thank you to the T Squadron. So thank you to the lovely people you see floating past your screen, and if you too would like to be listed in the T Squadron, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. And for as little as a cup of coffee a month, you can help this channel stay afloat, and that would be super duper appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the T Squadron. I'm gonna go make a cup of tea to celebrate the fact that Ikeuchi is out of here, and until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.